Today we talk about a simply incredible game that I discovered recently by chance. It is really not a very well-known game, but it is a game that I simply fell in love with. It changed the way I see gaming. Such a powerful, immersive experience, such a unique feel out of the game, such an intense interaction among players, and then just an unbelievable elegance that delivers a very intense theme. It's just a game that has it all. It may still not be for everybody because it is a fantasy horror game that is particularly powerful in its theme and the way in which the components deliver the theme. Actually, in fact, it is so powerful and scary that it could not be released exactly in the way in which it was supposed to be. The game was supposed to be called Growl of the Gruesome Grizzly, and it is in fact known by that name among the connoisseurs of the game, the very few people that dared playing it and that really managed to see the incredible beauty of this design. But Growl of the Gruesome Grizzly was simply too much of an evocative and disturbing name. The original illustration for the cover was simply too scary, so they had to change it a little bit, and the game was released as Panda Picnic Party with an illustration that is slightly different from the one that was originally planned. For example, this guy in the original illustration is a demonic grizzly from another dimension, and he's eating the intestines of several human beings, and there's blood coming from all over, and this guy here actually is eating his own head. It's very powerful, very strong stuff. But still, even though the game in the release version may not look exactly like it was intended to be, as you start playing it, you can definitely sense the horror creeping behind the components, creeping behind the design. The game still manages to be highly thematic. Growl of the Gruesome Grizzly, the fantasy horror game, a game that can change your life. I hope that you're strong enough to bear with me today, because if you decide to keep watching this review, I'm gonna show you all that this game can be. Again, it can be a shocking experience, but for a gamer, it can also be an incredibly revealing experience. So, if you decide to stay here, brace yourself, because trust me, when I start showing you this game, you're gonna be in for a heck of a ride. This is the game as it may look like at setup, but before we start talking about the mechanics, I have to tell you about the rich mythical background that the creators of the game came up with. There is a very fascinating fantasy story behind the game. The game is set in a fantasy universe that was created by two evil gods, a god and a goddess. The god is called Precipitabilissimo Volmento, and the goddess is called Gaetana. Now, these two gods managed to create the universe together, which is unbelievable because they hate each other, they never do anything together. In fact, they have different views on many things. For example, one day Precipitabilissimo Volmento took all of their children, dressed them up as mermaids, and took pictures of them that then he posted online. Gaetana was really mad about this because she thought that that was undignified, that was below the dignity of children of gods, and so she decided in retaliation to destroy the entire universe because just as to annoy the whatever out of Precipitabilissimo Volmento. But Precipitabilissimo Volmento did not like the idea because the universe that he had co-created with her had many things that were dear to him and he wanted to continue to enjoy. For example, he really liked strawberry cheesecakes, and he really liked Poland. He thought that was such a great country. He liked Chinese vases and baseball. So he just thought, the universe is destroyed, what can I do without all of these nice things? So he had to preserve the universe. To do so, he had to hide the magical diamond that holds the universe together from Gaetana, because that is a special item. It is a magical item whose power is to hold the entire universe together. If Gaetana could manage to find it, she could destroy that, and as a side effect, that would also destroy the universe. But he knew, Precipitabilissimo Volmento, that Gaetana was very thorough in her search, so the only way to hide the crystal was to disguise it as a basket of fruit. It's very counterintuitive. He is smart. So actually, here we have several tokens that represent baskets of fruit, but one of these in reality is the magical diamond that holds the universe together. Gaetana had therefore to go after these baskets of fruit. Yeah, it took her 5 seconds to realize that these were where the diamond was hidden. But she had to create agents that she would send after diamonds. Not easy feature because she knew that Precipite Volissimo Momento would have sent his minions after her agents to prevent the agents from finding the crystal. So she created powerful demonic entity called the Gruesome Grizzly Bears of Doom that are just so horrendous and terrifying that the simple sight of it can make a person get insane. And in fact, in the game, they produce miniatures that are so horrendous that they simply could not show them to the people that would buy the game. Just they were so incredibly unbearably ugly, which is, thematically appropriate. I love the theme. The game is just so thematic. So to go around this problem, to preserve the horrendousness of the minions of Gaetana, but not to scare too much the purchasers of the game, what they did is they actually produced those scary miniatures, and most of the people that worked in the factory where those miniatures were produced are known for going insane after that. But what they did is they then put them inside these cute panda bears. But if you ever are crazy enough to open a little zipper that is here, you don't see it because it's very small, but if you could be here, you could see right there. It's very clear if you're here. If you open it and if you ever take out the actual miniature of the Grizzly, or the Gruesome Grizzly, then trust me, it's scary, it's terrifying. It's some of the most unbelievably horrible thing I've ever seen. I've never seen anything like that in a game. I was crazy enough to show one of those at a game night, and I'm still fighting lawsuit from people that have been messed up ever since. But this is the idea. The Grizzlies of Doom are maneuvered by one of the players that is trying to climb this big tree of the universe. This is a big tree of the universe that has its roots in Sicily, and then it goes up to the Milky Way, and the baskets of fruit are hidden in it. Not really hidden, kind of like hidden in plain sight. And the bears are trying to catch those baskets of fruit, and if they find the one that holds the diamond, then the other players lose the game, and the player that controls the grizzly bears wins the game. So at the beginning of the game, you place the panda bears there, and then the pandas take the first turn. They roll a die that has a 1, 2, 3 face. That's all the numbers, and then the powerful grizzly symbol. You roll the die. If you roll a number, that is the number of hours that now you have to wait before the other players, the enemies of the grizzly, have to wait. So in this case, for the next 2 hours, you cannot do anything. You have to sit around the table and look at the game. This is a very intelligent, certainly very original mechanic to represent how the heroes are being worn out by the struggle against the panda bears. If a grizzly bear is rolled, then in this case one of the grizzly destroys one of the heroes before the heroes can even enter the game. Now, in order to fight against the panda bears, Precipite Volissimo Momento created his own minions, and he chose the best warriors from all universes. So he pulled in creatures and heroes from different and parallel universes, and each of these heroes is controlled by a player. One player, for example, is going to be the big crabman, and he goes there. Then you have a dude on a horse, and he also has a big knife. That seems like a generic description, but actually that is his name. And then you have a horde of intelligent zombies. They all represent a character because actually these zombies are very intelligent. They are telepathics, and they share a single consciousness. They act as a single entity. They come from a universe where, again, zombies are very intelligent, highly civilized, incredibly moral. vegetarian, and actually, in fact, in that universe, it is considered impolite to call them zombies. They prefer to be called differently alive. There is also another hero, which is this disproportionately large American tank, which is, yes, this is only in scale. This is just disproportionately large because it comes from a universe where they figured out a technique to grow incredibly large tanks that are therefore very effective against the enemy, even though it just takes so much gas to, just don't get me started, just to get gas in them, you're gonna spend half of your wage. It's crazy, but they are very powerful. Now, after the panda bears have taken their turn by rolling the die, the panda bear player can move all panda bears any way he wants and can grab as many baskets as he wants, even all of them, therefore winning the game right there. But there's a courtesy rule that says you don't necessarily have to do it. You're evil, but you want to see how the game develops because it is really cool. Then the players will always act in the same order. First the disproportionately large tank, then the crabman, then the dude on a horse, and then the differently alive telepaths. Now, in order to act and perform his turn, the disproportionately large tank has to show his ability to overcome obstacles. So actually the player, before being able to take his full turn, has to go through a series of tests, a series of ordeals. First, he has to prove his intelligence by passing a test in a language that the panda player will select. And for example, it can be Russian, Japanese, Italian, any language. It's a very hard test, so it is good if the player that plays this role comes in with some previous knowledge of foreign languages. Otherwise, you have to take a break from the game. The player takes a class, and then everybody reconvenes after 6 months, a year or two, and then the player takes the test. Fascinating because, again, so thematically, you need to be smart and to be very cosmopolitan to be able to know all that you need to defeat the grizzly bears, so that works. Then he has to prove his stamina by winning a hot dog contest. He has to show his courage by wrestling against an albino tiger, a real one. I know they're not easy to find, but it is possible. It is possible. There are feline rescue centers where they have tigers and big felines that have retired from centers and from circus and casinos. You can ask them if you can borrow one. And also he has to prove his luck by rolling a single die, 1d6, and rolling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in a row. And you just keep rolling until that player has that. At that point, the tank is finally allowed to attack. You open the tank, because in itself is completely useless because it's empty. What can you do? It's empty. Also, it is out of gas by this time. But the tank releases a small starship that can try to attack the pandas. The panda player can move his hands around to try to stop that, so there's even a dexterity factor. But if the other player manages to touch a panda, then actually he can attack. In order to attack, he rolls 1d10. If he rolls 1 to 19, nothing happens. If he rolls 20, he rolls again until he has a result of 1 between 1 and 19. And that is a miss. So yes, they're very hard to hit for the disproportionately large tank. At this point, the crab man acts, and what he does, he has a special attack which is called Murder Attack of the Crab Man. He attacks the pandas, and he destroys them all automatically. That's a very good power. I think it's very useful, and he wins the game immediately. So actually, as you see, the dude on a horse and the very smart, differently alive people never get to play. We recommend that you give these 2 characters to players in your group that you do not like much, so that they never get to play and you can make fun of them. But this is how it works. Fascinating game, full of interesting options, decisions, challenges, a game that is just so holistic in its approach, a triumph of theme, but above all, I have to say, a triumph of elegance. I cannot recall a design that achieves so much with so little, which is so thematic, so much chrome, so much flavor. Very complete game. This is more than a game. It is an epic. It's an experience. It is the game that I recommend the most. It is the best game that probably has been created in the last couple of eons, and you should own multiple copies. One for yourself and 10 that you put in the basement, and you will sell for $1 million each once this game finally reserves the recognition that it deserves. Growl of the Gruesome Grizzly, simply the best game ever made.